right, welcome back to the Start the Rebuild podcast, otherwise known as the STR podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Fournier, alongside Ian Mills.
What's going on, guys? It is episode number 19, the Skylar Thompson,
The Johnny Unitas episode, some may say as well.
the Chiefs Joe Montana episode.
The Chiefs Kadarius Toney episode.
The Juju Smith-Schuster at one point in his career episode. I don't maybe with the Steelers.
It might be out of 19s.
There was not a lot of good 19s. There was really not a lot of good 19s in the NFL.
I believe was 19.
Is he still in the league?
I don't think so.
But either way, it is episode 19. We are back again. How many consecutive weeks? I feel like we're kind of on a roll,
I think it's been 6.
Look at us go. Look at us go.
I can check that very quickly. I'm curious.
Staying true to our goals. And also just kind of 6. Wait, what'd you say? You want me to guess?
No, I just said look at us, but guess. Yeah, sure.
Oh, guess. I'm gonna guess 5. You guess 6. I'm gonna go with the under. I'm gonna go with 5.
Taking the under, you don't believe in us?
6 just seems like I can't really remember that far back. It's a month and a half.
I know. Let's see. So we have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is actually the 7th in a row.
Whoa, that is did not expect that, obviously, but good to be back once again.
Let's go.
I'm back in Binghamton right now for one day, and that's moving. But
like a goodbye to Binghamton this is like the real goodbye.
Yeah, it's weird because like I'm not that far away. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm still it's like 2 hours away from Rochester.
If you ever really wanted to go back, you could very easily.
Yeah. And I know a bunch of people here still. So it's like it'd be real. Like I could text and be like, yo, can I crash at your place? And it'd be possible. But
you wanted to just smell the Binghamton air.
Smell the Binghamton. I do love Binghamton.
But there's a big difference in that still. Like even though you're really close, you can go whenever. It's like it's not part of your not part of really your life.
I will no longer be leasing an apartment in Binghamton as of like 3 days from now. Correct. So
will you like come back and visit often, you think, or no?
I don't know. I'll try. I think as long as I have
time. Where it's like you have close friends in Binghamton and like you're like, oh yeah, like I don't feel bad about saying goodbye to you because I could see you all the time. But then like even though you're really close, you end up like only seeing them a couple times a year, and it's like,
yeah,
damn.
Life gets busy, unfortunately. And you gotta take time to smell the roses. You have to make time for your friends. Gonna try to do that later tonight. Hang out with some guys, But so going off the move, I was just talking to Tim off air about this. I had a very interesting experience. And I think you could have a very unique perspective on this, almost like, yeah, I'd say not unique, but I'm curious about your perspective, right? Because you probably have a lot more in the situation than I do. Because we talk a lot about fitness. You actually talk about marathon and whatnot. We talk a lot about eating right and exercising on this podcast. Try to at least work at it. So something interesting happened. Not interesting, but you know how like in college, like typically people gain weight. That's a pretty normal thing to happen. So I gained a sizable amount of weight in college, probably about 30 pounds in college, right? Maybe a little more. So I was up to like 210, 215 for probably a good bit, like most of my senior year, right? Well, I've since lost like almost all of that weight left back. So I'm back down to, what I was probably freshman and sophomore year, kind of losing that, the beer bellies that I gained in college, right? Mm-hmm. Which was like, a lot of that was just walking around and exercising and eating right, just not drinking every single, like college was. But yeah. So my point to this is like I was tracking it pretty solidly, felt good about it. And I had a very unique experience that kind of reminded me of the progress, which was moving back into my parents' house. My mom, which I have not lived in since I was 18 years old. My mom had a bunch of old clothes that she was going to throw out. And she was like, hey, check these out, see if they fit you. And I was like, these aren't gonna fit me. Like I haven't worn these in forever. But I was going through them and I was like, oh, I remember the shirt. Like this is a sick shirt. Like, oh, this is a cool sweatshirt. Like I had a Sacramento Kings not polo, pullover sweatshirt. And I was like,
Oh,
that's
it's cool.
dope. Like I need that. And it was like cool because it was like, oh, this fits me again. Because like when I was in college, it didn't. Like it was all too small. And then it was like I didn't expect it to fit, but then it did. And it was a very cool experience to be like, oh, like I did put in progress. I did, I didn't like go over, like I'm not training for a marathon or anything like that, but made the necessary steps to cut back some unhealthy things in my life. And like that's just one of the cool dividends is like, oh right, you can sort of regain that access to clothes that, but my point, I guess, is it doesn't really mean that much, but it was a cool symbolic moment because I was like, oh right, that's just like another win, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Um, and I lost a bunch of weight after high school. Um, I kind of on the for me, one of those like symbolic things of like, oh, I've actually made a lot of progress was growing up overweight. Anyone else that is overweight or has grown up overweight knows like the like shirt pull thing. Like
Yeah.
you'll sit down and like stretch out your shirt so it doesn't like not like too tight on like your stomach or something. And I still, even though I lost a bunch of weight, I like still just like was in the habit of like always doing that. And then when it like clicked that I was doing that for no reason, it was like, wow. Or like the first time I started like wearing a shirt that like I wanted to be like a little tighter, or like a public setting where like I was changing my shirt and I wasn't like afraid to take my shirt off and take it off. Like those are like maybe a little bit more extreme because I was like you said you put on 30 pounds, but you were never
Yeah.
like fat. I was
No,
fat.
no, no. It was, yeah, for me, it was more like cutting out unhealthy stuff in my
Yeah.
life
How
that
did
like
you lose the weight? Did you like track your calories or did you just like try to eat healthier and the weight came?
I mean, I definitely counted calories. Definitely was big into, I still am big into counting calories. Kind of moving, I've struggled with that a little bit, just, you know, moving and is a pain in the ass for a lot of reasons, but eating is a big part of it. Um, as well. But yeah, counting calories was a big thing for me. Was like making sure I was like under 2,000 calories and also still like staying active. And trying my best to like not like what I did a lot in college was like stress eat. I was very big into stress eating, and it was like sort of like very unnecessary foods that I was eating. Or I was eating more meals than I really should have because I was stressed at work or something like that. So like trying to cut that out, which not a hard thing to do, honestly. Like, but yeah, counting calories was a big thing for me. And then I go to the gym, and a lot of what I did was just like walk on a treadmill for an hour and a half or something like that while listening to a podcast. So that was the big thing, was just kind of counting calories, eating healthier, like trying to speed up your metabolism with eating greens and things of that nature, um, which was cool. But I say all this to say, because we're both like, oh, I mean, you obviously your situation's a lot different, and you actually tracked your weight loss, I'd say pretty significantly on Instagram and YouTube. So you have that journey out there. But this conversation reminds me of something else, which was when I was in high school. Like I remember very vividly, like not every adult I knew, but I knew a lot of adults, including family members, who were like, "Oh, you're skin and bones, you're too skinny, all this stuff." And then I gained 10 pounds, and it was like, "You got so fat. How are you so fat?" And I was just like, "It's 10 pounds. Like, what do you know what I mean?" So it's like, I guess my point is like the perception of how other people see you, especially adults, can very badly change your own perception of your body. And I've tried to become very aware of that. And I think just growing up and maturing, you get better at it. But like when I was like 19, 20 and like was gaining weight, and I was like, hearing from other people, like, I mean, you could probably talk about this more than I could, but it was something that like now outside of it, I'm like, oh, that was really, I was kind of messed up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
dude, I remember. So this was actually after I had lost the weight. um, I then had gotten really into fitness and like bodybuilding and stuff. So I decided to try and go on a bulk to put on more muscle. And I had no idea what I was doing. All I'd ever heard is that when you're bulking, you should just eat as much as you possibly can. And I already had a big appetite from growing up overweight my whole life before. And I put on 50 pounds and just got fat again. Um, and I remember like my friend taking a picture of me at like an awkward angle. Not like for any bad reason. He was just
Right.
like, I don't know, like just Snapchatting his like girlfriend and I was in the background. And I remember like then like walking past again and seeing his phone and his girlfriend like not trying to be like mean and she didn't think anyone else would see it, like Snapchatted him back and I looked over her shoulder and saw what she said. And she was like, wow, Tim got big again. And I was like, damn, like people like do notice that. But um I will say it kind of leads into a bigger conversation that like goes past like health and fitness in terms of people's perception of everyone else. Normally, if they don't have enough, most people don't have enough self-awareness to realize this is the case, but everyone likes to like compartmentalize people in their image of them. Like they
Oh yeah.
like seeing their friend as the skinny friend. And then when they put on weight and they change, then like most people like don't like that because as humans we just like want everything to be perfectly in a box. Like this is my skinny friend. It's and it goes way more than like weight loss things. Like that's just like an example. So like what I'm saying is when like those adults were like, "Oh, you're skin and bones," and then you put on weight, they didn't like that you weren't the skinny kid anymore because that like messes with the human brain. And a lot of people don't have enough self-awareness to realize that. And a lot of people on both sides, A, they do it to other people, and B, they allow that to affect their own head.
Oh, for sure. Like most definitely. And it is like something that, like the whole, how like our growing up, like it was always, don't say anything, don't say anything at all if you have nothing to say. But
Mhm.
like adults do not subscribe to that nature. They just tell kids to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that's, my way of saying that is like, I never had like a friend, like one of our friends be like, Ian, you're skinny, or when I gained weight, Ian, you're fat. It was never someone my age. It was never someone I knew. I mean, maybe they were thinking it. It's very. I mean, they probably were thinking it, but they were never going to say that. I say that as like I do have a hope for like our when we're parents, we treat these things like differently. Not just parent. I'm not trying to like be like my mom and dad, because it's not just them. It wasn't like it was like it's just that generation of like people being very weird about weight and not really understanding, what goes into it. But yeah, to go back to your original point where it was like, yeah, people are compartmentalizing. I was actually thinking about that literally today when I was driving from Rochester to Binghamton, which was like I wrote when I was in college, I wrote or graduating college, I did like a senior, I forget what it's called, senior column maybe for the student newspaper that I worked for. And it was like sort of to tell your story of college. And I told like a pretty weird, not weird story, but it was like a sadder story, like a sadder story where I was like thrown upside down. Point is, like, I kind of came out of it. That was the crux of the article. Was like a, something that happened to me and how I got through it essentially, right? And what hit me was like there were people I knew in the newspaper who sort of knew me, read that, and then they immediately that was the only kind of piece of information they had of me. You know what I mean? Like real personal information. And then to them, I was like the sad part, the sob story, something like that. And in my
Yeah.
head, I was thinking about that. It's like, oh, people really do to like any piece of if they have one piece of information, like that is they will attach that, and you are that person to them
Mhm.
until or you have to break that habit essentially, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to realize if you are doing that to someone else too.
True.
Yeah. Because I mean,
Very.
it's easy to say like, oh yeah, it's so dumb that people always do that, but it's also really hard to realize when you do it yourself. Or like you get a first impression of someone and you like write them off as a certain way, and then they're just not at all.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, starting like a new job, I'm sure, I mean, you're literally just started Charlotte. I just started a new job. and it's like meeting people for the first time, like the whole like first impression, you only have one first impression. It is so incredibly true. And
Yeah.
it's like you meet someone and immediately you have an opinion of them. And it's like, probably shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
I've had to do that now where I'm like meeting people at work or for my job, and I'll meet them and I'll be like, oh, this is what they're like, or something like that. And then immediately have to be like, relax. You don't know that. Like, we don't know that. Like, we had one interaction and they were probably busy, or this, they were trying to be funny and it didn't land. And now you're like, what was he saying then? You
Like,
know what I
oh,
mean?
this
Like
is the
things like
cringy
that.
guy.
Yeah, yeah, cringy, or like, oh, he just really, so yeah, something along those lines. And yeah, trying, I think like I've tried to be better with that. But you're right, it is like very difficult to realize you're doing it in the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Well, changing topics. How
yeah.
did you do on your goals last week?
Yeah, so I plan to do what, 4 miles, or run
I think it was
run
1 mile 4 times.
run mile run 1 mile per day. So I did three. However, 6 days, not 7 days, because typically we record on Friday. So
Right.
I do one tomorrow, I will reach my goal. Which I'll be honest, it is not like, it's one of those things that seemingly is very daunting. Like if you haven't run in forever, like the idea of running is incredibly daunting. But then when you start doing it, it's like, oh, okay, this isn't bad. Like this isn't horrible. Not to
Yeah.
say it was easy, but it
Getting
certainly
yourself
wasn't
to
like
go do it is way harder than
actually
starting.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like once you're already in it. That's how I always feel on like every run. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I get a mile or two in, and then I'm like, okay, like this sucks, but like I'm like made progress. Like I made a dent into this run. Like I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym. It's like, like if I get out of work, I'm like, do I really want to go to the gym? And then like 15 minutes in there, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm here. Like
Right.
even if I'm doing something that's not easy, I'm like, well, this is better than, like I would have been upset with myself if I didn't do this, so to speak. So
Right. Like I have my longest run of my career tomorrow, and like all day I've been like, oh. But I know like I'm gonna get into it and get going and be like, okay, like glad I didn't like skip and wimp out. But yeah. My
mid
goals this
run.
week were to do well on my first two tests back to
Yeah,
back days of grad school. And I did very well, which is awesome because that kind of gives me confidence for the rest of the program that like I'm in grad school. 90% of the people are like considerably older than me and like are working within the field. So I'm like, God, am I going to be so behind all these people? But I feel like I did really well on the test. So I went away this weekend and it felt really good that I got way ahead on the studying because I knew I was going to be gone the weekend before the test. And then yeah, I thought I did really well. I don't know what my grades are yet, so
yeah.
that's
How
always a
was
scary thought, but
how was Nashville?
Nashville was very fun. Kind of what you mentioned it a little bit early in this podcast. Uh it's really important for me. If you break down your life at the end of the day, all you at the end of the day really have is your relationships with people. And
Mhm.
so I went to Nashville to visit my college friends, and I had, you know, my first two tests of grad school um, on the Tuesday and Wednesday after I got back, and I didn't even get back until midday Monday. I, had to spend money to do it. I had to drive 7 hours to get there. And maybe this isn't the best example because it's like a fun weekend. I'm going and just like drinking in Nashville. But there was a
Sure.
lot of reasons where I was like, gosh, like I really want to go. Like I'm like just getting settled in Charlotte. I have these tests that's scaring me. Um, and the more I thought about it, it's like if all I really have at the end of my life on my deathbed is the relationships that I like had with people, and these are my friends from college who live halfway across the country, and this is one of the few times a year that I have an opportunity to go see them and spend time with them. It's like I have to do everything in my power to go do it.
For sure.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's it's 1000% true. Is like keeping relationships, right? Like that are important to you, like making effort. Like that's the thing. It's so easy to just be like, nah, like I don't really want to drive. I don't really want to drive 2.5 hours to go visit someone.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's, if yeah, I have a 3-day weekend. I'm just gonna, I want to just like be lazy and what, not be lazy, but like not go out there or make the effort and
Mm-hmm.
interact with those. And what's been cool about kind of being in Binghamton the last couple of years was like I had people 2.5 hours northwest of me and people 2.5 hours southeast of me. So like I was constantly driving back and forth between the two. And it sort of like got me to be very invested in like just like constantly traveling, which is like, it is burdensome at times. Like I'm sure like you probably were at the end of that trip, like, oh, I'm tired. Like you probably were exhausted, right? When you got back. But I never, like, I don't think I ever regretted going and visiting someone, like driving 2.5 hours to visit my girlfriend or driving 2.5 hours to visit a friend in Long Island. I guess it's longer than 2.5 hours, but you know what I mean? Like when I was living in Binghamton, like I guess I am in Binghamton now, but visiting my family in Rochester, like every single time I was there, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I did. You know what I mean? It was like something I was appreciative that I did. It was like recharging, so to speak. And then like, yeah, driving back, I'm always like, the morning that you're driving back, like at 7 in the morning, I'm always like, oh, this sucks. You know what I mean? But it's just like the tax, right? The tax almost of doing it, but it is incredibly important.
If you don't have those relationships that you care about and make an effort for, like you have nothing.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like even on the last podcast, we talked about like those like kind of like grind seasons where you like really put your head down and work. And it's like, what are you doing that for? Like event like next on the rung of importance from that is your relationship with your friends and your family.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, that's more important. And I mean, at least in my opinion, and gonna give you more fulfillment. Um, it's just kind of finding that balance.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
weird. It's weird being this age because there's constantly the battle of trying to find career success or scholarly success and also like retain relationships
yeah,
and being, people are always like, it's the 20s are the most fun, decade of your life. And it's like part of me is like, all right, well, I want to have fun, but at the same time it's like, well, I want to be successful in my career. And it's constantly battling that. And, yeah, there are times where I'm like reminded where I'm like, oh yeah, this might be more important.
yeah.
Friends.
Like that's how people always frame your 20s to like some people decide to like grind in their 20s and live in their 30s, and some people try to live in their 30s and it makes them have to grind, or live in their 20s and it makes them have to grind when they're 30s, or like just that mindset of like all in or all out. Um, and I feel like there's a way to do it in between. Like maybe there's an argument that in order to reach like upper levels of success, you have to just like be all in on the grind. But I don't know. I feel like there's a way to kind of just be like in that put your head down and grind mode for the vast majority of the time, and then like find the opportunities to act on the things that are like truly important to you in terms of friends and family and stuff like that.
Like
Like I
work
feel like
hard.
there's a way.
Yeah. I also think like that. I mean, we're kind of saying it tongue in cheek, but like I do think like that whole like grind set, like again, we've talked about like how it's in a lot of ways it is important to us in terms of
Mhm.
like wanting to pursue something we really enjoy. But like the grind set, like the hustle mentality, like the corporate hustle mentality that's like they'll tell you about that you see on like Instagram Reels or right? That's yeah, Instagram Reels, or you'll see a tweet about it. All that shit's, I mean, it's not true. Like it's not like those people aren't telling the truth. You know what I mean? Like those guys who are like, wake up at 4 a.m., 8 egg whites, get rid of the yolks. I read 6 books by 5 a.m. and then take a cold shower and then I'm like it's not true. What are we talking about? Like, what are we doing? And like, there's these people who try to like almost, you know, force you to feel bad about not giving 200% at your corporate job or something along those natures, like where you're, oh, why are you waking up at 8 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. and why aren't you going to the gym before, things like that. And but what we're trying to get at, I guess, and we talked about it last week, was like pursuing something that you are actually passionate about and making the time for it. And the combination of doing that while also being, finding time for the people you're passionate about. But so how was the game though? I mean, I know the Packers won.
It was very cool. Titan Stadium is cool. It's kind of just like your average NFL stadium. Like, I don't know how else to put that. I think they're building a new one,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is going to be probably pretty cool. Um, the game was like pretty close to 50-50 in terms of Titans fans and Packers fans. And I think that's a combination of the Titans not having a huge fan base, the combination of specifically being in Nashville, it's a very like tourist place. And then also Packers fans having such a big fan base for it, and they also travel so well because like obviously a lot of them live in Wisconsin, and a lot of people like will like leave Wisconsin to go like to a Packer game and like visit somewhere. And there's a lot of Packers fans that just live around the United States. So it was like crazy. Like the Go Pack Go chants were like way louder than any like
Any of
it
the
felt
Titans.
like it was 90-10. Like it was
Yeah.
nuts. Like you look out and it's like probably 60-40 Titans,
Yeah.
but you're like, dang, there is a lot of Packers fans, which is
I
pretty
don't
like sad. Like imagine just being a Titans player and you're like no one even is here rooting for us.
Yeah, I think what you said was right. It's like being in a town like Nashville when it's still summer. It's not summer anymore, but like it's still warm out,
Mm.
and like I
Wisconsin.
visited. I don't like country music, and I visited Nashville. You know what I mean? Like it's something that it's just a town that people visit, and people are going to make an excuse to visit. Like even I think that when the Bills played there, like 2 years ago on like Monday Night Football, it was a big deal. It's like, the Buffalo Bills take down downtown Nashville or whatever. But that does suck if you're a Titans fan. But also, it's you get to live in Nashville, which is presumably pretty cool. But I do like the fact that like I love when small franchises or small markets, I should say, not small franchises, but small markets like Green Bay or Buffalo or Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh's really not that small of a market, but it is in the grand scheme of things in the NFL, it is smaller. But they have fan bases that not just travel, but they're kind of just littered throughout the country for whatever reason. I think the Packers is because they've been around forever and they won the first Super Bowl. The Steelers obviously won a bunch in the 70s, and I can't explain why the Bills randomly have like a lot of fans scattered throughout the country, but it is cool to see that. And it's like the NFL is so cool in the fact that like every other sport or every other major league in the United States and North America relies on regionality a lot, and the NFL just doesn't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like uh, like Major League Baseball, you can't put the Oakland Athletics on Sunday Night Baseball against the Tampa Bay Rays. No one's going to watch. But if you took the two smallest markets in the NFL and put them on Monday Night Football, it's going to break every single record. You know what I mean? Like it's just the
Yeah,
NFL
it is
is
interesting to
big,
think about it that way.
yeah.
Speaking of the NFL, big game on Sunday.
Oh yeah, Mayor's bet.
What's that?
Mayor's bet. Even though we're both in the same town. You know what a mayor's
What do you
bet
mean a
is?
mayor's bet? No.
So a mayor's bet is when like the mayor of Baltimore and the mayor of Buffalo like are like, oh, if the Bills win, you owe me this. If the Ravens win,
Mm.
you owe me this. And it's usually like if the Ravens win, the Bills mayor will send you chicken wings, and if the Bills win, then the Ravens will send them crab cakes. I think that's big down there, right?
Yeah.
So that like it's just like it's stupid, but
Yeah.
it's like they'll do it.
Yeah. But Bills Ravens Sunday night, Mayor's bet. Um, it's like a weird dynamic for me, because it's like I'm a Ravens fan for like I've been a Ravens fan for like 13, 14 years, die hard. But like I'm also a huge Bills fan because they're the hometown team. I got introduced to football through them. I went to a million games with my dad growing up. Like I probably should be a Bills fan, but like I just wanted to be different when I was 9 or 10 years old. And like I can't change that. And as I've grown up, and especially since I've left, ever since I went to Wisconsin, like my Bills fandom has kind of grown because now it's like a connection back to home. Like that's how I feel about it. Like I don't know. I was really thinking about it the other day because we were in Nashville and my friends who are Packers fans, um, started like a chant in a bar because there's so many Packers fans and they're like the "Go Pack Go" chant, right? And it's
Mhm.
like if there was if I was in a situation like that and it was the Ravens and then someone was chanting like "Let's go Ravens" or something like that, like I'd join in. But like if I was in a Bills bar like that and someone went like "Hey," I would probably like yell that louder because it's like I don't know,
You have region, yeah. That brings up regionality, right? Like maybe
I
it does
know.
matter.
Like part
Hometown
of me
pride.
almost wonders like if at some point in my life I'm just gonna be like full Bills fan. Like I don't know. It's like it feels like I should be. I
Yeah.
talk about this all the time. I talk about this too much. But it's like I've been so committed to the Ravens for so long that it's like, how can I just stop? If
Yeah,
I
it's
stop, I
weird.
just feel like a fraud.
Right. It's tough to just give it up.
Like it's not even like I want to give it up and I can't. It's just like I don't know. So I'm honestly just settled on being a fan of both. Like I don't care what people say to me if that's weird. Like I'm just a fan of both. So like when it comes down to it, like if I really like dig deep, like who am I rooting for? Like I'm rooting for the Ravens. But it's like I don't know. I honestly what I'd like to see is just no injuries.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Yeah, I like I kind of can see, I definitely see where you're coming from. We've had this conversation, like you even
Yeah.
mentioned, like we've definitely had this conversation before. It's weird. Like I feel like just because I've never really left upstate New York, I've always lived in upstate New York, and it's like the Bills have almost always been the big thing. And it was I don't remember if you remember. I'm sure you do. Do you remember like the year? Obviously, Josh Allen's rookie year, the Bills stunk. They were bad. But the next year, they were good, even though Josh Allen wasn't very good. And it felt like every single person we knew who was sort of like apolitical when it came to the NFL, like they didn't really care about the NFL. Certainly didn't care about the Bills. All of a sudden became Bills fans. You know what I mean? Like you saw them
Yeah.
with like a Josh Allen jersey, and I'm like you didn't go like not to be like you didn't go through the drought, so you
Right.
can't
Yeah,
claim.
no, there was definitely a lot of that.
But like I do like I vividly I'm not gonna say the kid's name, but I vividly remember a kid in who we went to high school with who would like he didn't care about the NFL, didn't care about sports in general. And in one of our classes once, he like it was like our freshman year, and he was like, "Why does everyone care about the Bills? The Bills stink. They're never gonna win anything." And I was like, "Dude, you don't even care about the NFL. What are you talking about? Stop chirping the NFL." And then like last year on like Instagram was posting all about the Bills and oh, I love my hometown and oh, I love this stuff. And I was like, buddy, you didn't. Or and it's fine to like pick up sports afterwards, but it's I don't really know where I was going with this. But my point, I guess, is like it's like, you grew up watching the Bills. Like you did, it's not like you didn't grow up watching the Bills. Like you have more of a tie to the Buffalo Bills and like a lot of these like randos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I don't
it's
know.
what
The way I see it now, it's just like I'm a fan of both. And if you want to tell me that's dumb or weird or whatever, like I just don't care.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
dude.
I mean, who cares? Sorry,
I'm gonna
bud. Not
have
gonna
I'm gonna post like an Instagram story of like Bills win, and then and the next week I'll post one of the Ravens win, and people can freak out about that if they actually care, but no one actually cares.
I was just saying, I don't think anyone actually is gonna care. I just went on a rant about how I cared, and I want to revoke that rant. I want to take the rant back.
Do you think that's more on the person? Like, if you look at it objectively, more on the person for not like caring about the Bills before? Or do you think there's some level of responsibility from like the upper level management of the team that they were
Right.
so bad for so long that like they deserve people to like
That's
not
fair.
have like a
Yeah,
positive
that's fair.
perception of them? I'm not saying
I think
it's like all
actually
one or the other, but like that's kind of on management to be like that bad
it
that
is.
long, and then like you can't really be like, no, you can't like us now
Yeah,
either.
that's true. That's true. I mean, like, listen, football is for everyone. I don't mean to discriminate. Watch football. Well, everyone should watch football. It's the greatest sport
Well,
on earth.
racism.
I've said that before. It's the best. Watch more football. If you're watching all the football, find more football to watch. Go watch your local high school football game. It's still entertaining. But yeah, I do think you're right. Like you can't reward owners for bad like bad play almost, you know what I mean, or bad
Yeah.
moves. I was listening to Pardon My Take yesterday. They did an interview with this guy Mike Silver. So Mike Silvers, I'm gonna get his
Sounds
name
really
wrong.
familiar.
But he worked for NFL Network, or might still work for NFL Network. I don't think he does anymore. But he was basically like an NFL insider almost, but more of like a columnist. Like he would write features and get like Mike Silver, yeah, that's his name. And listen to the interview. If you haven't listened to the interview, I highly suggest it. Like, regardless of like, I know people, don't really. Well, I love Pardon My Take. I think it's funny, but like, regardless of if you like the podcast or not, it's a very good interview. But what he said, they asked him about it because he knows the owners very well. He knows the ins and outs of the NFL very well. He knows players very well, the Shanahan family, and they basically were like, are there owners in the league who are making money hand over fist because the NFL prints money? And are they just content to make money and not necessarily field a good team, and then once in a while might cash in like a lottery ticket, like, oh, we drafted a quarterback highly because we were so bad for so long, and it turns out they actually were a generational prospect, and maybe we lucked into a Super Bowl or lucked into a couple years of relevance. And the guy was like, honestly, like it happens more times than you think. He was like, you got to realize something, like there are going to be owners who desperately want to win, and that's always going to exist. But like, yeah, there's certainly owners. It's not just an NFL problem. It's in everything. It's in every sport, and even more than just sports. But like, yeah, there are going to be people who are content with just printing money essentially. Like we said, like the Oakland Athletics played their last game in the Coliseum. Like, and now they're moving to Vegas, and are going to make more money, right? And it's like, well, the owner never invested into players, so it's like how can, and they were like, oh, well, there's no fans in the Coliseum. And it's like, yeah, because they never signed any free agents. They had the lowest possible payroll of all time. And it's like, so yeah, I think what you're getting at is right. That's my second rant in like 5 minutes. I got to stop ranting, but
No, that was good. Like that's so interesting to think about too, because it's like I think part of it too is like how much disposable income do the owners have left after they buy the team? It's
right.
like if this is just like, 10% of what you got, it's like, yeah, like let's go all in and try and win. But if you like buy a team and like your entire net worth is like sunk into the team, you're probably a little bit more like, okay, like I want to make sure that I'm, just making money. Like,
Yeah.
do I really want to be a risk? Because like at the end of the day, it's a business investment
Yeah, it is.
for
It's
these
true.
people. Like, I don't know how it all works, but I could see that playing into effect. And honestly, if the Bills were better when we were growing up, 9-year-old Timmy probably wouldn't have just randomly decided to follow Ray Lewis and Ed Reed on the Ravens. You know,
Yeah, that is true. That is
but
true. I'm
I
glad.
I
Yeah,
can't fault, like it's not my fault when I'm 9.
right. Exactly. But yeah, and I am glad that like the Bills are now good. Um,
It's great.
it's great for the area. It is great for like it is just kind of like I actually did like an interview with someone, and I was at a bar interviewing like fans, How do you feel about the game? Whatever. There's one I was talking to her off camera and I was like, hey, are you a football fan? She was like, no. And I was like, oh. I was like, can I still interview you? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, what do you think about the game tonight? She was like, I don't care about the Bills. She was like, but I'm so happy that everyone's here and having fun. Like she was like, the Bills have just created so much community, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's
And I was
awesome.
like, yeah. It's like it is true. It is like because like to go back to that kid that I was berating in my mind that I don't haven't spoke to in years. Like, yeah, I am happy he's a Bills fan now. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
for
know what I mean. And if the Bills,
together
if the
and
Bills were good, then maybe we would have had a shared, hey, let's go Bills. You know what I mean? From a kid
yeah,
that I never, other than that one time. But like, yeah, I do agree. It's like the better a team is, of course, you're going to just expect more fans.
yeah.
Um,
Who knows? Maybe when like the John Harbaugh Lamar era is over, I'll just be like, I don't have any like emotional ties left
well,
to this. I
they're
don't know.
gonna
I don't
draft.
know. What's
They're gonna
up?
draft. I said they're just gonna draft another like top 10. I mean, Lamar is like top 5, but like Joe Flacco was probably top 10 most of his career. Like they're just going to draft another one because that's what the Ravens do is they draft.
They're a well-run organization, that's for
They're
sure.
a very well run organization.
It's crazy to think about like teams that have such like consistent success because they're ran well, and then teams that aren't, and then it's like it fluctuates so much. But it seems like in a lot of sports, it's just like these teams are always run well, and they're always, if they're not like a championship contender, you can like see the path for them to get back.
Right. Right.
And then other teams, it's like, oh, well, they just went on a run. They're poorly ran normally, so they might just be irrelevant for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like the Panthers are like historically not that well run. And I'm just saying that because I'm in Charlotte. And it's like, oh, like they looked into Cam Newton, number one overall, and then had, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of relevance. And then he was gone. And they have just been like, if you account for the last, I don't know, 6 years, like 5 years, are they the worst team in the NFL the last 5 years? Maybe.
At least the last two
I
years.
mean, after Cam left, and it was like Bridgewater, Darnold,
Yeah.
Baker, Bryce
When was
Young.
they made the playoffs our senior year of high school because they went 11-5 and they lost three straight. They lost to the Saints 3 times in one year. I remember that
With
pretty
Cam
vividly.
Newton, though.
With Cam Newton, yes,
Yeah.
that was 2019. So, yeah, I mean, since then, you're right. Like they have probably been the least. Um, you could argue Broncos probably just because the Russell Wilson
Yeah.
trade.
And then to your point earlier, too, it's like the Bengals. I see all this stuff now about like ever since Joe Burrow came, they have like to the team and he's had success. They've like completely built a new indoor practice facility. They completely redid their locker rooms. They sold the naming rights to the stadium to like make money to pay for that stuff more. Like they looked into the franchise quarterback and now they're like spending money and going all in. From that respect, I guess now that I say that, they're like refusing to pay uh T. Higgins
Jamar,
and refusing in part to pay Jamar Chase. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know. And
they got a franchise quarterback. And then you could just be the Packers who have had, 3 straight franchise quarterbacks. And before that, they also had Bart Starr in the
yeah,
60s.
and before like the NFL was even like merged together, they won like 13 championships
Yeah, I mean, they
or
just,
something like that.
I don't like, it's hard to even say, like, oh, the Packers are a well run organization. And they just have never had a bad quarterback. So it's like hard to tell. You know what I mean? It's like they've
Yeah.
just always had, Aaron Rodgers was always
And
top three. Brett
to be
Favre was,
fair, the last two times they've had like a very well structured plan.
true. That is very
Like
true.
they're coming in and they have no pressure to play, and we're going to develop them before they're ready to be put on the field.
That is
So
very true.
like
You
to
have, you
their
have a very,
credit,
yeah. I'm not
but
trying to bash. I'm not trying to bash the Packers, but it is funny that like you look at the Bears. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer. The
yeah,
Packers have had like 6 quarterbacks in their history, dude, and it's just like funny how that works. Like
yeah,
the Pittsburgh Steelers have had what, like 4 coaches ever, something crazy like that. Like it
yeah,
was like Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, Chuck Noll, and then I'm sure I'm missing like 1 or 2 guys, but like those were, you know what I mean? Like it was like over
yeah.
the course of the last 40 years, they've had like 3 coaches, and it's just like the
Yeah.
stability that
Some teams
some
go through 6 in 10 years.
exactly like the Browns. Remember the Browns, like Rob Chudzinski, like he was just a year there, and then there was another dude like he's
Mike
on like NFL
Pettin
Network,
and
ESPN. Was like
wasn't Mike Pettin the head coach? And
Penn was a head coach with Johnny Manziel. Yeah,
who was the head coach that went 0-16 and they drafted Maker
Hugh
Baker and then he was
Hugh
gone?
Hugh
Hugh Jackson.
Hugh, Hugh Jackson. That's his last name. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe like just kind of breaking the fourth wall here. Maybe we can add more sports topics into our podcast, but like from a higher level look like that. Because I love talking about that stuff. Like not like deep like film analysis like what we're seeing, but from like a higher level of that.
Yeah. The business side. Not even just the business side,
We
but
could
that's just
save this for next time if we're running low on time, but I saw a
yeah.
Barstool podcast with Portnoy and Big Cat, and Portnoy, who has a lot of money, is like, what's stopping me? I don't know if you saw this from
I
just
did. Yeah.
like helping Michigan because he's a Michigan fan and just being like, what's stopping me from just every single year giving $3 million to whatever quarterback they're trying to get in the portal? And it's like, technically nothing.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
They were like, yeah, we'll have him on like a podcast once a week. We'll have like a weekly spot with him on, like that's gonna be like it's like a marketing, whatever.
yeah.
And
And it's like,
yeah,
if that, technically nothing. And it's like, then what is like stopping these people from making like millions of dollars?
I think
Like
I'm curious.
realistically, Dave Portnoy, like with how much money he has, like he might be okay with giving like a couple $1 million a year
Yeah.
to this person.
I mean, that's what he made it seem like. I'm curious how much like Caleb Williams made at USC and like how much
Yeah,
Shadur and Arch Manning are making and Quinn Ewers.
yeah, I wonder, dude.
I would it's probably more than a million. Like it's almost like you know what I mean? Like maybe not should yeah, probably Shadur. I'm just saying because Colorado's not that big of a school, but like I don't know where the NIL money is coming
yeah.
from, but certainly and like Colorado's benefiting monetarily from Dion and Shadur being there. There's no doubt about that. Um
But I'm
so
talking
yeah,
like people like completely unrelated to the school other than like they're a fan. It's like not even like the school
yeah.
finding ways to give them money. It's like Portnoy who like is just like went to Michigan and is a fan of Michigan and now has a lot of money. So you can just be like, yeah, like um I don't know, someone who wants to if Miller Moss wanted to transfer from USC next year and he was like deciding between a bunch of different schools, like what's stopping Dave Portnoy from being like, hey, if you go to Michigan, like I'll make you a Barstool athlete and I'll give you $3 million.
Yeah, it's like you have obviously boosters have always existed or have existed for a long time, and it's you're basically just now telling boosters like, hey, we can give this money to players, like we have to give this money to players now, and like you're essentially creating that's what NIL collectives, from my understanding, like that's essentially what they've become, and yeah, like you could just do that, and I am curious how long that lasts because I do think like
There has to be some type of regulation on it at some point.
regulation, like like a salary cap going to exist in college football? Like I don't know. Like that doesn't
I
really. I
think
don't know.
where it needs to go is that you like sign these kids to like contracts or something
And then
where
they
like
can't
the
train.
kids make money, but they like have to stay at the school for 2 years.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm sure there's going to be some type of. I am curious because I think I'm trying to think of this. Maybe it was Dartmouth last year. Their men's basketball team unionized, and which you've never like. It's insane. And so like with the UNLV, I
Yeah.
forget the kid's name.
Luca?
Skula, Luca, leaving allegedly because they didn't pay him his NIL money. And now he has to use a red shirt. And it's possible that that's not what happened. But from what I can understand, that is what happened. They didn't give him his
Hmm.
money. And it is curious, like, well, if he signed a contract, he would have that money, correct?
Right. Like,
Like,
how does the agent not get that in writing?
I don't know if you're allowed to have it in writing.
Yeah, I guess I
I
don't
don't
like
some of
I
these some like yeah, some of the things they're saying like you could certainly like the questions we're asking are probably we could probably answer them. It's someone who knows more about the situation.
Mhm.
But
That's why
yeah,
we need guests on this podcast.
yeah, we need
Let's start working
we
on
need
that.
NIL. We need an NIL expert to come and
Yeah, we need
explain
an
us
NIL lawyer.
Luca, UNLV, which sucks because they were having
They
a
were
great year.
good.
But
They're like
this,
3-0, 4-0. They were like either ranked or about to be ranked. He like
yeah.
went to Holy Cross. He played with our good friend Griff. Like it was sick.
Oh, did he really? I did not
Yeah,
know that.
like
I'm
he
just
was
like,
in QB. Griff was in the QB room with him.
that's sick.
Tough. But
Um,
yeah. What about your goals for next week?
I think I'm going to run it back. No pun intended. I think it's going to be good to create a habit, and I think obviously creating a habit takes longer than a week. I'll run it back, see if I can do it again.
I love it.
By you?
My goals this week. So I definitely did a lot. Of like my goals for the last 3 weeks were all revolved around studying, getting ahead for my tests. I did well on my tests, and I have some breathing room on that. I want to do a big focus on content creation this week. Um, keep stocking up on short form videos, really trying to build something.
Oh,
And hopefully, one day it can drive some traffic to this thing so we can keep
yeah,
building.
yeah,
Um,
that'd be
Other than that, continuing my job search so I can start working while I'm in school as well.
that's sick. That's good. It's a good goal to have. Good
So
goal
I'm
to have.
gonna say keep going with my content creation, like build a schedule out for that, and apply to jobs every day.
All right,
There we
sounds
go.
good to me. I'll
Well,
do
thank
it.
you guys for listening. Next week we will be on the Tony Pollard episode.
As what we landed on.
Can you think of another 20?
Tony Pollard. I was definitely not looking anything up.
Oh no, you can't look it up. Come on now.
I can't think of a 20. 20 is such a stupid number, dude.
Oh,
Oh, Rondé Barber. Oh, Ed Reed.
yeah, I was about to say I'd read. Like I'm being an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most notable 20 of all.
Brian. Actually, there's not a lot. Brian Dawkins. Jesus.
Brian Dawkins, Ed Reed. I
There
think
are only
wasn't Matt
11.
Breida 20 on the Bills?
I think he was. Yeah. The profile of Football Heaven declares that the following 11 enshrined players wore number 20: Lem Barney, Cliff Battles, Brian Dawkins, Johnny Blood McNally. What a name. Ed Reed, Mel Renfro, and Rondé Barber. So only a handful of names that we should realistically
What
like
about
Ed Reed,
NBA?
NBA. No, Jimmy Butler was
22.
22. 20 is just kind of an ugly number.
It kind of is.
In one game, wait, in one game, Russell Westbrook? That can't be true.
What?
I don't think that's true. Looking on Yahoo Sports. Ray Allen. Okay, we should have known that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's a big one. There's a big one. Who's
What
probably about
team?
um
What conference?
Western Conference. He's probably about as good as Ray Allen, which you could probably argue
Is he
about,
in
but
the league currently?
no, same tier as Ray Allen, I think. Could be wrong. I'm not a big
Same
NBA head.
tier as Ray Allen, Western Conference. Kevin
20,
Martin. I think he was actually.
huh?
I actually think Kevin Martin was 20.
He might have. I think so. He played probably 2000 to 2017 or 18.
Um, Western
Boom,
Conference.
boom, boom. Won a lot of titles.
Um, what number was Manu Ginobili?
Number 20, Manu Ginobili.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Also Gary Payton as well. So
All right, well, I guess we just sucked then. The fact that I didn't say Ed Reed off rip was really bad. It's
I
because
was
I'm a Bills
thinking
fan.
Ed head. Well, I guess I did say,
I
but
thought of Matt Breida before I thought of Ed Reed. Maybe that says something.
Bills. What team is Matt Breida on this year?
Currently,
I don't know.
the most recent team I can think of was the Giants.
He still doesn't know Giants.
All right,
we gotta
this,
wrap.
I think this outro is taking way too long. Join us for the Ed Reed episode next time. Peace out, everyone.
Ryan,
Like,
Rondé
comment,
Barber,
subscribe.
Manu Ginobili.
Man,
We'll get you.